Good morning, this is Randy. For those of you who are still working on boundaries and setting boundaries, what I can tell you is that when you exert your boundaries, that is when people push them, and it may be many people, not even just the narcissist. May have gone no contact with your narcissist, but throughout life, people are still going to continue to test and push your boundaries in various settings: the workplace, social life, children. And when people push your boundaries and you actually say no, you're going to be called a lot of names. And the names that you're going to be called by that person who's angry that you set that limit or boundary, the names that you're going to be called are those that cut to the core of an empath, because these are names that are opposite of how we really think of ourselves. You will be called selfish. Definitely, you'll be called selfish if you choose to spend your time in a way that is not how someone else wants you to spend your time. And if you spend certain amounts of time on yourself, doing things to please yourself, doing your own exercise, your leisure activities, your hobbies, self-care. Because the society does not really value self-care, that response doesn't hold up, especially with people who want you to care for them in exchange or in place of caring for yourself. Those people don't buy into self-care. And obviously, since they want you to take care of them, they're not into self-care themselves. They do not understand it. They're unable to achieve it. And therefore, any time or money you spend on your own self-care seems to be taking away from them. You will also be called selfish and stingy if you protect your finances. If you are logical and responsible with your money, but other people want your money, and that includes businesses, it includes telemarketers, people coming to your door wanting to sell you things, commercials that pull on your heartstrings for starvation and all dying animals and all sorts of ploys, the beggar on the corner, the panhandlers, all sorts of ways that people in society will pull on your heartstrings. And I'm not saying, don't give them $1 or whatever. You give whatever you really want to give. Or you don't give anything if you don't want to, and you shouldn't feel bad about not doing so. But realize you will be called stingy or selfish, and if you're not outrightly called that by someone else, you might hear a voice in your head calling yourself that. You might question, am I stingy? Am I selfish? And so the outer voices and inner voices are just the same. They're still being called names. So whether you're calling yourself a name or someone else is calling you a name, this is what you are going to have to face and deal with and cope with and try to let roll off your back if it's by someone else. And if you're the one calling yourself that, then you need to analyze where these voices are coming from. And you need to stop them. You need to counteract the inner voices that call yourself selfish and stingy for taking care of yourself and for protecting your own finances. Now, sexually, if you set boundaries with other people, or even if you're more of a modest person, you will be called a prude. You might be, again, called that outright by someone else, or you might call yourself that. Your inner voice might call yourself a prude. Now, for men, I don't know what name they would call themselves if they set sexual boundaries. I don't know what other guys might call them. I don't even know. I got no clue on that, but there probably are some. Anyway, just know that you're going to be called these names, or that you're going to call yourself that, and be ready to counteract and protect through your inner child, knowing that setting boundaries will come with these kind of consequences, and they're easily dealt with. They're much more easily dealt with than it is to go against your own boundaries and then see what happens. So having your boundaries pushed is not a fun thing. Either way, you have to cope. You have to either cope with the fact that you went against your own boundaries and values, which I am saying is going to be a worse choice than to go ahead and set the boundary and then deal with the consequences of the name calling, or what you're going to say to yourself in your head about yourself. So the other thing that you're going to probably be called is judgmental. Again, these are things that someone who is an empath, or someone who is just, a normal, nice person trying to do the right thing, these names don't sit well with us. It makes us really question everything about ourselves. And that's, in a way, that is a clue. When you're questioning everything about yourself and it just seems so wrong or does not ring true to you, then it doesn't ring true. If it's not true, it's not true. It's about the other person. It's a projection. And it is a fine line about how do you accept constructive criticism from someone else that may be true, versus how do you let criticism and name calling roll off your back when it clearly is not true. And sometimes there's a fine line, because we're not all one way or the other. Maybe at sometimes we have acted selfishly. Maybe at sometimes we have, I'm not even going to say have been prudish, because I don't even understand what prude really means. I mean, but let's go on to another one. Stingy, selfish. When we're called these names, perhaps at some points we have really been that way, or we have real reason to question whether or not we're being stingy or selfish. But now that we're matured, we can see that protecting ourselves is a good thing. And being emotionally vulnerable or open to a new relationship does not mean having to break your boundaries of self-protection. That is a slow process and should not be something that is just opened up right away so that you can be, again, taken for all you have, like how the narcissist did. So that's the end of this video. Thanks for listening.